Initially, I was a little skeptical that this weirdo was doing these songs. Looking back, however, one reason that record was such a pleasure is that we had enough humanism already. You know, he wasn't the Allman Brothers. Fine, the Allman Brothers are fine, but we wanted something different, and so there was a skepticism, an irony, a sarcasm. I mean, Baby's on Fire is that's a terrific song because of the tone is so wonderful. I mean, no American rock band would do anything with that kind of tone, not in 1974. Unthinkable. And it was wonderful. It was tonic.
It's an album with great tunes. Baby's on Fire is incredibly catchy. Here Come the Warm Jets is an example of an attempt to make a commercial record by somebody who doesn't really have that much interest in commercial rock music. So you have a lovely kind of, you have a lovely collision in a way between these two impulses. And really, Here Come the Warm Jets is the first in a series of records where Brian is slowly removing the foreground of the traditional rock record. On Some Faraway Beach is perhaps the first intimation of ambient music, aside from the things with Fripp, where you have this kind of destructured rock music, decentered, balladic form. And it's very beautiful, but it's also rather strange and mysterious. Whereas a lot of the record has this pounding quality, and it's quirky, and it's strange, and it's idiosyncratic, almost Dadaist. There are these moments, these kind of pools of lucidity that exist within the record, which are definitely signposts for the future.
Here Come the Warm Jets was a considerable success, reaching the top 30 in the UK and gaining favourable reviews from the mainstream rock press on both sides of the Atlantic. Publicity, however, was problematic. Although there was a planned trip to the US to perform interviews, without a band behind Eno, there could be no tour. Yet one evening he happened to witness a performance by pub rock regulars, the Winkies, and impressed by their playing, he offered them the chance to become his live backing group.
The Kensington was a very famous pub in West London. Most of the pub rock bands played there. Dr. Feelgood, Bees Make Honey, Ducks Deluxe, Us, blah, blah, blah. And he was basically looking for a band. I liked him. I thought he was an okay guy. He did music that I'd never heard before. I hadn't. That was the buzz. And I didn't know what to make of it. I'm thinking, keep your mouth shut, keep your ears open, be a good guy and just get on with it and see what happens. And that was what I kept trying to tell myself. We were given the album. I went home and learnt the bass parts, and I'm assuming that Guy and Philip and Mike did the same sort of thing. I mean, I felt sorry for Guy and Phil because the bass lines, they're there. You know, you just simply, oh my God, that's what it is. Boom, 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 learn it. But when you've got all this Phil Spector stuff going on, you think, how on earth do I interpret that on a guitar? What can I do? And you're up a gum tree, really, because it doesn't matter what you do, it's never going to sound like that. So you've got to sort of meet it halfway somehow. And again, I thought Philip and Guy did a really excellent job. It wasn't easy.
Before Eno hit the road with the Winkies, however, E.G. persuaded him that a single would be needed to further promote the album. Taking his new backing band into the studio for their only official recording, the result was an original composition, The Seven Deadly Fins. Released in March 1974, the single failed to reach the UK top 40.
The most difficult thing, which when you listen to Seven Deadly Fins, I think we gave it our best shot as a band, was interpreting stuff to not make it sound like yet another boring rock and roll band, because that's not what Brian wanted. It's difficult, you see, because a guitar sounds like a guitar. Unless you've got a guitar synth, it's always going to sound like a guitar. It can't sound like anything else. I suppose we were very sympathetic to the idea. Brian treated Guy's guitar solo. It starts off quite conventionally and then it goes off the wall. Mike's drums are very interesting and quirky. I just played rock and roll bass. We did a good job. We gave it our best shot.
Oh, the French girls with the strings of pearls think it's such a burning shame that the local boys with their country joys never make them daisy chains. They're swapping disappointing incidents while at the docks another ship pulls in. And suddenly the door breaks down. It's the Seven Deadly Fins. Oh, oh, oh. So
Seven Deadly Fins is an attempt to make a hit single. I don't know exactly where that comes from, whose idea it was, but you can imagine it probably came from management record company. And I think Brian treats it a little bit like an art project. Like, okay, how do I turn what I'm doing in Here Come the Warm Jets into a palatable glam rock single? It wasn't a hit, so it didn't work. But by the same token, I think it's another example of Brian saying, okay, what are the parameters, and how do I slot myself into that? It doesn't sound incongruous in the same way that a couple of years later he released the cover of The Lion Sleeps Tonight, Wimoweh, presumably with a similar purpose, but also failed to chart. But somehow he inhabits it. It doesn't sound like a novelty item for novelty's sake. It's kind of de-gimmicked somehow because he brings to it a certain kind of joie de vivre and it kind of grins at you in a certain way.
In the same month, Brian and the Winkies began the UK tour. Yet despite positive early reviews for both the inexperienced frontman's vocal performances and the abilities of his band, soon into the shows, Eno was becoming uncomfortable with being in the spotlight and grew disillusioned with the touring process.
Brian is not a frontman. He hasn't got that personality. He did it, but I think he may have been stressed by it. There are certain types of people that can do certain types of job, and Brian is a creative musician, certainly creative in the control room, very innovative, off the wall, quirky, you name it, but giving it no, it's not his personality. To front a band is one hell of a responsibility. I don't think Brian actually wanted to do that. Whether sometimes you are actually put into that situation because you are forced into it, then that's another matter. You see, I think Brian was obliged to promote Here Come the Warm Jets. What are you going to do with it? And he got an audience because he just left Roxy Music. So what are you going to do with the thing? Put it on a shelf and hope for the best? No. So, he sort of had to do that.
Despite his discomfort with the whole process, the tour was eventually cancelled due to more serious concerns. Only 5 dates in, Eno began to suffer from chest pains and he was diagnosed with a collapsed lung. He would later claim that despite the health scare, he was relieved that something had pulled him out of his commitment to tour.
I think Brian's relationship with the road was always one-sided. He didn't want to be on it, basically. I think with the